G'day team, today we're going to review a couple of the top most popular models over the last few years of Husqvarna auto mowers, the 450x and the 430. So we're going to go over the similarities for the start on the two models, and then after that we'll go into why you would choose one model over the other. So for a start, both mowers run the same bodies apart from the ultrasonic sensors on the 450. Both of them are 31 centimeters high by 56 by 72 centimeters long. That's in both the units. The weight's similar. The 430 has got 13 kg and the 450 has got additional batteries. That's running at 13.9 kilo. So there's not too much difference between that, but we'll get more into why you choose one over the other. The cutting system on both of them is the same, 24 centimeter cut. We are running, so you've got 24 centimeter cut here, a 3-blade system. If you're not familiar with auto mowers, they're going to slice the grass instead of whacking it down with a heavy duty blade like most other methods do. So you get your fine razor blades. These will run on these units for about 2 months, so it depends on your lawn. So you have your skid plate there, that's independent from the cutting motor and the cutting disc. So if it does hit something, that's going to take the load off the cutting motor. Situation that you might hit something is a wind-blown branch or a dog bone or a kid's toy or something like that. The mower's not going to see that, and if it's small, it's just going to mow into it. It'll either turn away or it'll give you a block cutting motor error, so that prevents further damage to the unit. So both of them are the same on that aspect. It's a good system. All Husqvarna models run the skid plate cutting system. Earlier models or other manufacturers have produced bigger blades and different systems, but everyone is falling into the system here because it's so proven. It's lightweight, the motor can spin for hours and hours, not use much power, and because of the whole disc and skid plate, it's really hard for anything to get up and underneath and bind around the motor. So really rare for the Husqvarna units because they're designed that anything gets in here and traps up the unit and stops it, so they can mow hours and days and days and days on end without any trouble. So the wheels are the same on both. So you have two back wheel motors, and you have your trolley wheels here. These wheels they get pushed around by the back wheels, so over top of other models that's not going to be driving as many motors, so it's only got the two back wheel motors. Another thing about the two, they have a shell on the top that's independent from the body. This does a couple of things. It allows for sensors in the front and the back to give you a lift sensor if it was lifted or it rode up a tree root or something like that and got a bit stuck. There's the lift sensor. In the back circuit board there's also a tilt sensor, so the mower can feel when it's been lifted or when it's tilted on undulated land, and then it would hit a hill on an angle. As soon as it feels that tilt, start going up the hill on an angle. They both have the keypad, stop, and your keypad. This model hasn't been used, so it's still got the sticker on there. So the difference between the two models, so why would you choose one over the other? So the 430, that's capable of doing up to 3,200 square meters of area, and this one here is the 450 capable up to 5,000 square meters. So this unit here has a run time of 4.5 hours or 270 minutes, and the 430 that has run time 145 minutes or about 2.5 hours. It's going to charge for 50 minutes and then repeat. And this one here will charge for about 60 minutes to 70 minutes and then repeat. You're looking at a charge system on this one here of 7 amps versus 4.3. We've got a 5 amp battery in here versus 10 amps battery in here. So a lot more run time on this unit over and above this one here. But you're also looking with the 450 at a faster ground speed So the wheel motors are going to drive harder on this one here and cover more grass. You're covering about 208 square metres per hour with this unit, and the 430, even though it's got the same width, same cutting system, that's only going to cover 133 square metres per hour. And it's going to do it 2.5 hours before a charge, but this is going to do it 4.5 hours before another charge. So you can see this is going to be on the lawn and have way less charge cycles per day if you're on a large lawn, or you want to get your schedule and your mowing time down. So if you want a lawn and you only want to mow for 12 hours, you may chuck your 450 on there. So other than that, the 450, over and above its faster ground speed and its longer run time, has ultrasonic sensors. So these are going to see an obstacle that's about 150-160 centimetres off the ground, so more designed for trees and borders and edges and things it's going to bump into. When it sees those, it's still going to mow directly up to them, so it can mow as close as it can to that item, but it's, instead of smacking into it at full speed, it's going to see it and slow down and nudge into it and mow as close as it can. So that's one of the reasons this can go a little bit faster without damaging itself. The 430 can still bump into everything, and it still has the bump sensors, so it's going to mow into everything really close, but this can do it at a faster speed. So other than that, both of them have got your app function, so you can see what they're up to anywhere in the world. You can connect through 4G and cell towers and be remote and see what your mower's up to, change schedules, change the cutting height, park your mower, pause it, whatever else you want to look at. Your stats, you can see how many over hours it's done, the k's it's travelled, and see where it is on your lawn at that time. So that's quite a cool feature. The app is really usable. Husqvarna app, it's Auto Mower Connect. And each of the boards, the internal boards that run the GPS and your Auto Mower Connect, so your connectivity to your phone, in New Zealand anyway, you buy a 10-year subscription when you buy the mower, so that Husqvarna will look after you on that front. You'll have that connectivity to your phone for the next 10 years from purchasing it, which is a cool feature. You don't have to buy a subscription or anything like that, like you do many other things. So, real weird situation when it comes to the install. Both of these models run on a boundary wire system. So they work with inside a loop, a wire that's buried in the ground or pegged on top. If you do a self-install, many people will just peg it on top, and you'll peg every 600 mils, roughly, because you want to peg that wire hard down. Your grass will just grow over top of it within about a month in a growing season. But if you're a full-time installer, like I will do, we'll always bury the wire as much as possible. So 99% of the wire will get buried by a cable layer, and it'll go about an inch under the ground. So other than that, limitations on the wire for both the units, you can get up to 800 metres of boundary wire. I like to stick with under 750 metres of boundary wire, and that's usually enough. If you are getting a real complex garden, you're getting up in the meterage of wire, boundary wire, then it's going to take longer to mow. It's going to nudge into more boundary wire. Even if you're a smaller area, you still might go for the 450. Other than that, the other big difference between the two models and why you might need, or an installer would recommend you going the 450 over the 430, is the guide wires. So the 430 has two guide wires. Your guide wires, they run from your charge plate out and about through your lawn into remote areas of your lawn. So if you've got your charge plate dead in the middle, you have guide wires going each way. The guide wires loop into the outside of the boundary loop, and they're going to assist the mower to get to certain areas when it starts mowing, and also help it to return more efficiently back to the charge station. Both these units have GPS mowing, but they can't position themselves as such and return on a GPS map. They will know where they are within 2 to 3 metres of accuracy, because GPS without a reference station is accurate to 2 to 3 metres. That's why it's critical that they run on a wire system. And they'll know in the lawn roughly where they are. They'll search for the guide wire, hook onto that guide wire and return home. If they can't find a guide wire, they're in a part of the garden that just doesn't have a guide wire. So if you had 5 or 6 different garden areas and 2 of them weren't covered by guide wires, then you can set the time. So after X amount of minutes, they've not been able to find a guide wire, then they would just jump onto a boundary wire and track that boundary wire back to the charge station until they get to the charge station, or another guide wire, and then they'll hook onto the guide wire and go back home. But so 3 guide wires for a complex garden is going to wipe out the ability of the 430 in many cases. A lot of people underestimate the usability and the necessity of guide wires, but as a rule I always say always install the guide wires that you have for your installation. So in a case if you have the 430 and it's a big lawn and you thought, oh, I might only need 2, you'd always put 3, because not only does it return on those guide wires more efficiently, it's going to keep that search time down, so it might be mowing 98% of the time and the 2% of the time returning to the charge station. If you only have 1 guide wire in there, whether you could have 3, you might be up to a 5 or 6% search time, and over hundreds and thousands of hours over the next 5 to 10 years, how long you have that unit, that's a lot of extra milling around of it getting back to the charge station a lot more inefficiently. Along with that, on the guide wire front, it's critical to position your guide wires so the tail of your guide wire ends in a different spot that you want it to start on. So if you have an open lawn, you can set the 3 guide wires on the 450, 2 at one ends and 1 in the middle. That way you're also telling the mower it's going to want to go to each end of these guide wires systematically at a certain rough percentage when it knows it hasn't mowed out in that area. If you have 2 guide wires, it'll sort of go to the ends of those 2. If you have 3, it'll go to the end of the 3rd one. So if you've got a real tricky lawn, and a lot of people do, they've got a lot going on in their lawns, then splitting those 3 tails of the guide wires, catching through these work areas along with ending up on the boundary in 3 completely different spread out locations is going to help that mower mow the area in a lot less time and more efficiently. So as far as the mowing method, both of these work on the rubber band effect. So they're going to always bounce around. They will mow with GPS, so it's called GPS assisted mowing. And what that is, they remember a metre by metre of where they've been and where they haven't been. They will, after a week or 2 on a new lawn, they'll learn that area and the whole area and keep that in their memory. And from there, when they return back to the charge station, they'll remember how many times they've been over 1 square metre and whether they need to return back to the area that they were focused on and finish it, or whether they need to hit a new area. So that ensures that even in the most complex gardens, that the auto mowers can remember where they have mowed and haven't and won't miss spots. So often people are pretty amazed about it, we're getting everywhere. But if you had, like in the extreme cases, which is very rare, it might only be 1 in 30 or 40 mowers really, because an installed correctly mower will get everywhere. In a really rare case, if you have something very difficult to get to, you can turn the GPS off and just running off your straight rubber band effect mowing, and you can tell it to follow a guide wire down X amount of metres and start mowing at 20 to 40% time on that guide wire. Your second guide wire, you can tell it to go down that guide wire 50 metres for example, and it can start mowing there. There might only be a little area, it might only need to go there 10% of the time, and then your other guide wire, you could lead that into a really big area if you had all these areas going on, and then you could have that going there 50%. So you can divvy that up to as much as 5 different areas on the 450. So that's the ins and outs of how they work as an install. Both of them run off a charge plate. So you have your, this is for a 450, so it's 7,000 milliamps. But you have a low voltage cable that goes into the back of your charge plate, and you have your transformer that goes into 240 volt. They come with a 10 metre cable. This is a 3 metre one because it's what I use for servicing and testing mowers. This is your charge plate. Your mower, it's a bit dirty this one here because it's what I use for everyday use, servicing mowers. But it's fixed to the ground. Normally you'll just peg it straight into your dirt. It's got anchor screws, screw into here and here. And in the back here, the mower will dock as it pleases. And then you've got your boundary wires coming out here and your guide wires coming through the centre. Normally you can sit the charge plate a little bit back off the lawn if you like. My preference is to have the feet of the charge plate on the lawn by about here, so about a third of the plate on there. That'll eliminate many problems. A lot of people choke up your boundary wires and have them really close. but you want at least a third. If you want to have it off the lawn, then increase your width, a metre plus, so you've got a wide angle going from your boundary wires out. And the reason for that is because when your mower comes into dock, it'll find the charge station and get near it, and then in front of the charge plate it's going to move back and forward and relocate itself centre. And how it does that to centralise itself into the charge plate, there's a fast signal that comes out of the charge plate that runs up to 8 metres. So when it's travelling in on a guide, it'll catch that fast signal within 8 metres and that'll beam it straight into the charge plate. When it gets within a metre, it's going to hit the near signal. And the far and near signal wires are built into the charge plate like a boundary system, but it's to draw the mower in. The near signal is key because that's what gets it centralised onto here. So within a metre, it's going to jump off the far signal and it's going to jump onto the near signal, and it's going to be like, okay, I need to realign myself. So if you've got the front third here, the mower can realign itself before it docks in, and then you have effective docking. So, but all of that is not something you have to worry about if you're not doing a self-install, which for these two models, the majority of people don't do a self-install because the amount of meterage and wire you normally need when you're covering the large areas that these do, it's a lot easier to get an installer to do it. But by all means, people can install themselves, and if you've got a good technician that recommends which mower for your lawn you should have, that's the first step in getting the right unit, and then you can have a go at doing your own install. And if you make an error, you can always cut your wire and try again. So my preferences and what do I install and where. So the 430, I really like to install this up to 2.5, anything near 2,500 square metres. I always recommend going the 450. Time you get that size, for the smaller amount of increase in what you pay for this unit, you're better off to go the 450 over and above the 430. It's less time on your lawn. It's going to get the lawn mowed more effectively. The 3 guide wires if you need it. Often you do need it. A lot of gardens are more complex than people think. But then again, a lot of people underestimate how complex, excuse me, how complex both of these units can handle. It's pretty impressive. So up to about 2,500 max for this. If you're near 2,500, just jump to the 450. So I know the 430 is rated at 3,200. That's max. So if you've got a moderate to a high growth rate area, then you've definitely got to underdo that, because in spring and autumn, if you get really good growth, it may not keep up as much. So it means if you did have it on 3,200 square metres and it's struggling, it would be mowing 24 hours a day and there'd be nothing else that could help it get on top of that. So you're always better to have it under. The 3,200 square metres and 5,000 square metres is set out to like best case situation. Both of these can handle a lot and they'll mow around the clock, no worries. So 24-hour operation, 7 days a week, that's sweet as. So, but if you downsize it, you can always keep on top of your lawn a bit better. So with the 450, I like to stick under 4,500 squares, preferably under 4,200 square metres. When you're getting up to 4,500 squares, in my location, generally, you're pushing it a little bit when it comes to spring growth. So we might have 5-6 weeks of real good spring growth or so, and in autumn the growth might be the same. So the idea of the auto mowers is they go out regularly and often, and they maintain your lawn. So it's not about, the question's not about how many hours will it take to mow my lawn, which people often ask me, and I always tell them, well, it's not really about the hours you need it to run, it's how many hours it will take to maintain my lawn to a finished lawn standard. So that's the key, because the old mowing methods are thinking, well, how long does it take to mow my lawn, how often do I have to mow? I might only mow a couple of times a week, and generally with a ride-on, you might only mow once a week when you should mow twice a week, and then guys will go out and mow once a week and snap belts and struggle, and it takes ages and they refuse to do a double cut. But with the auto mowers, you've got a 7-day-a-week finish. You'll pull your curtains in the morning and look out your window and your lawn always looks mowed, and your mower just goes out there and just polishes off your lawn. So the main benefit in that is you're just taking a small clip off that lawn each time. So you're keeping all the nutrients in the foliage of the leaf. You're not drawing a lot more moisture out of the ground and nutrients, so the leaf itself is not working as hard on your lawn, and any weeds coming up, they're always going to get clipped. You're going to still get your broadleaf and stuff like that that's going to spread through your lawn. Doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to have to spray that. So a little bit of lawn maintenance with any mowing type, any mowing system is going to be relevant, but a lot of the weeds won't do as well because they're always getting a haircut all the time and often. So yeah, generally so up to about 4,200 square metres, and this one here up to 2,500 square metres. Many people, when they do get to that 5,000 square metres or close to it, that's when I often recommend dropping down, potentially getting 2 of these. So I know that's different in every area. We do have a couple of these units that are like up to about 5,000, and one of them is over, but really stony ground, really dry, doesn't grow much grass, especially in the middle of winter and in the middle of summer, so that grass will burn off. So that kind of area you can go a bit bigger, but many areas around here we've got awesome grass growth, so that makes it a bit harder. Yeah, so that's the rundown in the both here. This is one of the first channels, first videos, Automower Tech with Hamish. So I hope you enjoyed that one. If you've got any questions, just shoot them below and I'll help to ask. I'll help if I can and answer any questions that linger around. So more videos to come out on anything Automower related to this channel. So yeah, subscribe and give it a go. See you in the next one.